Shalom, my friends. I decided to yet again start publishing content to a different channel. Um, so that channel is Pilgrim at War. I think I will first publish this video there, and some people will have a chance to view it there, and then someday I might share it on the A Pilgrim Warrior channel. And the reason for that is because some people just do not understand how um, we just do not always understand each other, and someone's methods of evangelism, someone's methods of mingling with people, the lessons someone's learning, the path that someone is on. Like, we're all at different spots in our journey, and then we all are different individuals. So, like, the diversity of our experience and the perspective there is a major factor into how we look at the behavior and choices of others. So, I want this channel, Pilgrim at War, to be for people who are in that Christian geek nerd like realm, and that can follow a bit better what sphere I'm endeavoring to reach. Because years ago I competitively played Magic the Gathering. Years ago I played Dungeons and Dragons really intensely, as a Boy Scout on camping trips and stuff, and at other times. And it was, I think there was definitely some, maybe, perhaps what someone would call obsession or idolatry in that, in those hobbies, and and that led me to at one point just completely give all of that up, thinking that, like, I couldn't be a nerd, I couldn't be an artist even. I felt like I could not be who I very much felt I was, because I was being told it was out of the Overton window for um, my sphere of people I was associating with. And that Overton window is just an expression of, like, if the like the edges of what is socially acceptable. Like, within the window is what's socially acceptable in a certain environment, and when you start to go towards the edges or beyond that Overton window, you like, those ideas or those things are just simply inconceivable or unacceptable. And for a long time, even associating in certain contexts or in certain places or with certain people, so to it's to even think of doing that, like with Christian nerds and geeks and gamers and stuff, it was like just not an option. And you just basically had to ask them if they wanted to do Bible studies. You couldn't try to make friends with them in their environment. It was too dangerous to walk into a comic shop, or, like, it was just like, it was acted like these places are enchanted ground, and, like, you only go there if you're expressly called, but really no one gets that calling. It was kind of like that attitude, or at least that's the way I was made to feel. And recently it became to my heart, it was heavy on my heart, that I wanted to reach out to these communities. And I happened to meet someone at a store one day who was into these nerdy things, and he invited me to hang out with him and another person and they were going to play cards. And this was a new experience for me, and I had purposed in my heart that one of the main that I did not want to have a competitive spirit. I did not want to be seeking. I did not want to be dominated by that spirit of competition. So the type of card playing we were doing was a multiplayer type of card playing, and in this multiplayer um, game, you could either be friendly with the other players, you could just seek to you could make deals, you could like be political, you could just seek to totally annihilate and dominate everyone. You could be like, you could really demonstrate different qualities of character, different tactics, different strategies, have different objectives. And one of the common um, ways that people play this game, well, the most common is just trying to win. Um, the Some other people try to cause chaos, and there's another category that's affectionately called group hug. And group hug is a category of deck type that is all about helping everyone. You may like win occasionally, almost incidentally. Some group hug decks like have like a few ways to win, but for the most part, you're just like giving everyone more resources, trying to make everyone have fun. And I set out to like build a deck that had this sort of philosophy, this like altruistic, help everyone type of philosophy. And the first week I went to mingle with these people, I brought a deck that was really incomplete, and it had like minor disciplinary cards that would like remove a threat, but would give the player who had the threat like a little bonus. Like it wasn't like just destruction without some kind of blessing. It was sort of like neutralize a threat, but give them something else in its place. So it wasn't like total destruction. It was like substitution or pacifying something. And what I came to, I felt like it wasn't really a complete test because the deck was not really this fully completed. And this week, when I went, the deck was far more along, and I had decided I wanted it to be totally helpful, like no disciplinary things, like nothing would destroy everything if things got out of hand. You know, if one player got like too violent towards another, I wouldn't stop them. That sort of thing. Like I wouldn't like do anything to like stop them. And what I noticed is that by just giving all of these other players whose goal is to win and cause chaos, to be violent, to defeat each other, like all I did was accelerate the process of their own like destruction, and like chaos ensued. And it made me really think about the character of God, and how like if God never like let our cup of iniquity overflow and us to see those consequences, like if he never allowed the flood to happen, if he never had those two priests who brought strange fire into the sanctuary, if he did not, in them breaking that hedge, if there were not consequences to that on the individual level or on a widespread level of just needing to just like wipe everything clean every so often, or remove individuals that are being violent or like problematic. Like God obviously allows all sorts of things to happen, but certain times like it's over, like things end for someone, and ultimately we know there will be a judgment, and sometimes we see a taste of that judgment in this life. So what I came to realize is like in my effort to create a deck that was altruistic and in a sense had similar qualities I was endeavoring to like behave myself in this game in like a way that I felt was in harmony with the character of God. And what I realized was that because there was no discipline, there was no consequences for these people's actions, and I was just endeavoring to bless everyone, what the blessings that I was giving were being used to just cause chaos and destruction in the game. Like, rather than things being kept in check, major threats being pacified, and occasionally just like wiping the slate clean when like too much violence and chaos has like ensued, I just let everything go. And it caused me to reevaluate and want to redesign and create another deck that that I think more accurately conveys how God behaves, in that he does intervene. Like, there are moments of divine intervention in in like the human experience, where entire armies are just stopped because it's not in alignment with his will. I was reading about the Spanish Armada, where back in the 1500s, the Spanish Armada was determined to convert England to Protestantism, and they had hundreds of ships. They had 50,000+ soldiers that they were endeavoring to like totally annihilate the English opposition and convert them to Catholicism. And this was about 30 years before the Pilgrims would set sail and like set in motion the events that would lead to the Declaration of Independence and the United States of America, and religious liberty in the U.S. and continued Protestantism in England. And when you look at history and you look at prophecy, like, the United States was coming, and that's a separate subject, but the United States was coming, a glorious land was rising up, and if Spain was going to stop the spread of Protestantism, to stop the advancement of truth, and like slide everyone back into Catholicism by force, then God would, may do well to intervene. And intervene, it seems like he you could say he did, because their cup of iniquity had overflowed. They'd broken down the hedge. They'd unleashed the wrath of the destroyer. Like, God, just like God like removed his hedge from Job, I think God removed his hedge from a hedge of protection, the hedge of angelic protection from the Spanish Armada. And this massive armada was just devastated by winds so much and storms that, like, when what little remnant did face the English just was a pitiful thing, and they basically went running home with just like a small fraction of the ships, like maybe like a quarter or a little more than like 30% of their ships remaining out of these hundreds. Meanwhile, England never lost one ship, and while like 5,000+ people in the Spanish Armada drowned or died just from the winds alone, it was just in like the tens or low hundreds that I think it was less even than 200. It was just like a few by comparison of English losses. And I marvel at how God operates, and it's really fascinating to me that when things get out of hand, like our cup of iniquity overflows, there are consequences to that God allows to occur. And these are all types of, like, this whole thought process was related to, like, my perception of who God was, how I was endeavoring to behave like him in a social setting in this game, that's designed to be competitive, basically, and to have a non-competitive attitude. And in doing so, I just learned, like it, so much about how God is and why he does what he does, because I get it that, like, because there were times in that game I played this week that, um interestingly, in the game there's a card called Wrath of God, and Wrath of God destroys all creatures on, like, in play. And you like there was many times in the game where, like, it's like if I just had like a Wrath of God card, like the one that would just destroy everything, like, it would have made the game, it would have been a better experience for everyone, because things just got so out of hand. Like, whether it was one player just totally dominating, but it was kind of like everyone, because of how much blessing I was giving them in the resources, cards, um, ability to play more cards. Like, all of the blessings I was pouring on them just accelerated the chaos, just made their competitive spirits more. It gave someone with a gave people with a competitive spirit more. Um, I won't say that they have that spirit, but I'll say it gave people who were trying to win the game just more resources to try to do that more, with more dominance, with more power. And I just see, like, the blessings that God gave man originally. What did they do with them? Well, there was so much gold, so much resources. Animals responded well to them. They had such long life, such health, such intelligence. And what did they do with it? Just awful stuff. Such that, like, God, allowed the flood to happen, and that he you see the lifespans and the precious, like there was less access to these precious things. Lots of them were buried, and there was less long lifespans. People couldn't do as much wickedness with less health and life and vitality. Anyway, I marvel at what I learned just in like 2 weeks of mingling with these people, and my purpose for doing so is to show myself friendly, and then to make friends, and then to invite my friends to, like, ask some questions of themselves, like, to think about life, to, like, and ultimately consider um, getting acquainted with their Savior on a more intimate level, or for the first time. So I'm excited to continue making friends and continue learning along the way, because we're told that by being comforted, he that watereth shall be watered also himself, and by comforting others, they themselves also will be comforted. So thank you for watching, and shalom, my friends.